Hello again, I'm Rick Partlow. Welcome to How to Write Science Fiction That Doesn't Suck. Today's episode is going to be about POVs, points of view. Now, the main points of view that are used in science fiction and most literature is third person and first person. First person is I, me, my. Third person is he, she, they. First person is easy. You're writing from the point of view of the inside of somebody's head. The author is giving voice to the character from inside their own head. Some people don't like this. It's more popular in urban fantasy than it is in military science fiction, but I kind of feel like it adds something to military science fiction. The personal experiences of the soldier on the ground, the guy digging through the mud. It's less like a role-playing game or a after-action review, and more the personal experience. It's a memoir of a man or woman who is in the suck. You know, they're feeling the mud under their feet. They're feeling the incredible heat or the cold. They're having to live in the squalor and fight every day. And if you see that from third person, sometimes I feel like it's too impersonal and you don't really get the experience of it. And I think first person can help that. I don't know why more military science fiction writers don't do first person. I think it may be just the impression that third person is the accepted POV for that genre. I don't agree, and I've sold a lot of books writing first person in military science fiction, so I think there's got to be an audience out there for that. So I would not advise you against it. I would say that you have to be careful when you write first person, because it's very easy to just be you writing your personality on the page, and you can't do that, because if you do that, then every book you write from first person is going to be the same book, no matter if it's a different character. You have to be able to crawl inside the head of a character, and maybe that's why more people don't do it, because it's not easy. It means you have to know that character inside and out. You have to know how they think in every situation, and that's not an easy thing, but it can be very rewarding. So if you feel like you want the challenge of writing first person in military science fiction, I would encourage it. At least try. If it doesn't work out, you can always go back, and if you give up on it early enough, you can change it to third person. I don't recommend giving up, but you know what I mean. If it doesn't work out for you and you feel like third person would be better, you can always go back and rewrite it in third person. For third person, there are two different types of third person POV. One of them is no longer used much anymore. Some people try to use it, but when it's used nowadays, it seems very anachronistic, and that's third person omniscient. And that's basically, you are the god of this universe, writing what's happening and seeing inside everybody's head and what they're thinking, and you are telling things from the point of view of the divine being of this reality, who knows what is happening everywhere. That used to be popular back maybe 70, 80 years ago. It has lost popularity and is not done much anymore. Most people do third person limited POV, and what that means is, in any given scene, you are telling the story from the point of view of one character. Now you may be saying he did this or she did this, or he thought this or she thought this, but you are only in the head of that one character. And what that means is, for example, if you're writing a scene where two people are talking, having a conversation, and you're writing third person limited POV, you can't start off the scene with, John watched as Mary walked in the room, and he could tell she was upset. He said to her, "Have you heard?" You can't go from there to, Mary said, "Yes, I have." She thought John looked very upset too. No, you can't say what Mary thought because you're in John's head. That's called head hopping. And head hopping is fine if you're writing a third person omniscient. But like I said, the problem with that is most people don't write that anymore. And honestly, I don't find it interesting. I mean, some people may. I don't. I think it's uninteresting because there's no mystery to it. If you know everything that's going on, then there's nothing to discover in the book. If you're writing from a third person limited POV, you discover things as the characters do. But anyway, you in third person limited, you stay inside one person's head for the entire scene. You cannot jump out of their head without changing scenes. If you have more than one POV, which most third person limited books do, and you want to show a scene from a different person's point of view, then you have to break off that scene and start from the other person's point of view. Now that seems like a lot of work, but it's how things are done, and there's a reason they're done that way, and it's not just because writers think that this is important. I see I've been in critiques where people get criticized for head hopping, and they're like, "Oh, it's all right, I like it this way." No, it's not whether you like it this way. It's there for a reason. It's there because the readers expect it. And if you don't meet the reader's expectation, well, if you're a good enough writer that they are happy with your storytelling, even though you didn't do that, well, that's fine. But it's better if you want to sell books, if you want to build a readership, to meet the reader's expectation. And the readers expect, they've been trained by decades of reading, that if you are writing third-person limited POV, you don't jump from one person's head to another. And when you do, it's jarring. It breaks up the scene. You've built a flow in a scene from the point of view of one character. And when you jump to another character in a scene, you interrupt that flow. And as writers, we know what that is. We know why it is. The reader may not know, but they know it happened. They can feel that the flow is gone, that you've interrupted the flow of the scene, and they won't know why. They may not know why. They seem this book seems choppy. It doesn't seem to flow. It doesn't seem to, it doesn't seem to be well written. And they don't know. They may not know why that is, unless they've taken courses on it. But we know why, and they can feel it because they've been trained by reading other people's books. Maybe if this was somebody who doesn't read fiction and your fiction has this and they don't know any better, then they won't be bothered by it. But most people who read your books are going to be avid fiction readers. So they're going to have the sense that something's wrong. So you have to follow the rules of third-person limited POV if you're going to use it. And that means do not head hop. Do not jump from one person's thoughts to another in the same scene. Now let's get to the number of POVs you can have in a third-person limited book. Most people say that you should stick to 2 or 3. And I would agree that there should be 2 or 3 main characters that you go through their points of view. But I also find that it spices the book up to add the point of view of side characters. Like if you're going to tell something that happened while the main characters aren't there, it helps to be able to create interesting side characters who may not be part of the book, may not be part of the story, the entire run of the story, but their little part can be more interesting if you tell the story of their life. Not just info dump it, but just give a little glimpse into their life in the scene you're writing. Like, instance, in The Line of Duty, there was a scene where the biomechs, which is basically like biological robots that have been manufactured as, automated slaves. They're not real they're not people. They don't have human brains, but they're basically like servants. They're robot servants, except they're grown and not built. But they've been taken over, and they're attacking the city. It's a distraction for something else, but they're attacking the city. And I had to have a section of the book where it shows them attacking this one particular place. Now, I could have just had the main characters arrive there, and the attack is ongoing, and then they go do their thing, and it would have been shorter, but it doesn't show the desperation of the people that they're attacking. It doesn't show the confusion. So I jumped into a character, a young policeman in this area who gets a report that something's wrong and goes and checks it out, doesn't understand what's happening. And then he sees the main characters arrive at the end of the scene, and he sees them from an outsider's point of view, which gives you a chance to describe. You describe your characters from their close circle of friends or acquaintances or people they work with, and from inside their own head, but you don't often get a chance in a book to describe them from an outsider's point of view. So I think it's cool to have like little interludes like that where somebody who's not part of the main book, who's got a life experience totally outside that, if the main characters are big time military intelligence commandos, they have one point of view, they have one life experience, but I think it helps a lot to bring in somebody who's normal and have them look at these people from the outside and give everybody else a glimpse as to what they look like from that angle. To your main character, he may be, suave and charming, but maybe the outsiders, he's gruff and dismissive. It's just something to show how your characters look to normal people. And I think it's effective. I think the reason some people frown upon it is that a lot of authors, when they do this, they get far too deep into the person's head. And that's not necessary. You don't have to tell their whole life story. You just have to give a glimpse into the normal characters in your world. So, for instance, if you're throwing in a side character to see a scene where your main characters aren't there, don't go into I wanted to be a college professor, but I wound up being a security guard and yada yada yada. No, just have them thinking about things they would be thinking about in their day. If you're a security guard and even if you're not happy with the job, and you're wandering around your post, you're not going to be thinking, man, I really wanted to be a college professor when I was a kid. No, you're going to be thinking, that the episode of that TV show was pretty cool last night. I wonder if my friend Joe saw it, and I wonder if I'm going to be able to get my full lunch hour today, because if Frank doesn't show up on time, things like that. That's what people think about. And that brings up and segs nicely into another problem with POVs, and not specifically to POVs, but a problem people run into when they're doing someone's internal monologues, sort of. People often want to use like a first-person POV or even a third-person limited as an info dump. If you're inside the guy's head, he's thinking about all these things like, the war's been over for 25 years, but I still hate these aliens. People don't think about that. That's not what... I'm not sitting around, at a traffic light thinking, World War II has been over for 90 years, but some people still don't like the Japanese. Now, I'm not thinking that. I'm thinking, I'm going to be late for work, or this traffic sucks. Just because you have an opportunity to see inside someone's head and get a slice of the life in their universe that you built, doesn't mean they're going to be thinking about that universe. Doesn't mean they're going to be thinking, we've had a space station for 20 years, and I wonder when they're going to build the new one. No, some guy sitting around at his job thinking about that? No, he's not going to be. Even somebody who's nuts about space is not going to be thinking that in their job. So don't try to use the internal monologue of a third-person limited, close, or a first-person point of view to info dump. It's lazy writing. Also, dialogue. Don't info dump in your dialogue because it's obvious. If you're going to give out information in dialogue or in the thinking of your first-person POV or third-person limited POV, you dole it out in dribs and drabs that a reader who's paying attention will understand that something's going on, but you're not just slopping it in front of them like a prison cafeteria. You're serving it to them a little bit at a time, like a fancy restaurant. I mean, some people make a lot of money doing the prison cafeteria approach, but I'm not here to tell you how to make a lot of money. I'm here to tell you to write science fiction that doesn't suck. And in my opinion, the prison cafeteria approach sucks. So I'm not going to recommend that to you. The reader wants to think they're smart. And that's the bottom line. The people who read a lot of them are smart, but they want to think they're smart. They don't want you to treat them like an idiot. So if you dole out information in dribs and drabs, as long as you don't do it too teasingly and make things too difficult to figure out, they're going to appreciate that. They are going to appreciate that you respect their intelligence. Just make the clues something that somebody can put together. I'll try to give you an example. If you're in a universe where aliens have visited Earth and the government presents them as benefactors who are helping everybody, but in reality a lot of people think that they're there to exploit us. You don't have your main character thinking, oh, those aliens, the government tries to make me think they're benefactors, but I think they're here to exploit us. No, you think, have him think something like he's got some alien tech and he's like, man, this thing is on the fritz lately, I don't know why they didn't give us something more advanced, and then have him think about man, they commute to this job is longer than my old one. It makes me kind of wish that they hadn't, shown up and made my old job obsolete. But guess you can't stop progress. Things like that. Just little hints. Don't slop the information out there all at once. Don't have the main character just give it up in a dump, because it's inelegant, it's sloppy, it's lazy, and it's disrespectful to your reader. Parcel things out gradually. Make the reader work for it. Now, maybe you're going to get readers who don't want to work for it. Maybe they want the slop. But I think that if you trust your reader and let them piece the things together, don't tease them. Like I said, don't tease them. Give them the information they need, but don't just say, here it is, this is what I'm talking about. Let them understand it. And then maybe later on in the book, when it becomes important to the plot, you say, this is what I was talking about. And they'll say, oh yeah, I was right. See, that's the important thing. At some point in the book, the reader wants to be like, oh yeah, I guessed that. And they're going to think, oh, I outsmarted the writer. I'm smarter than he is. But that's what you wanted them to do. You're trying to entertain your readers, not just tell them a story at a campfire. You want to entertain them. It is a story told at a campfire, but it's a story told by somebody who's experienced at telling stories. So you're not the guy who's there explaining. See, you've heard stories like this. Stories where the person who's telling the story explains every little detail, and it gets boring. And you're like, what's the main point of the story? What's the point? What are you getting at? What happens to the characters? You get tired of him saying, Oh yeah, well he was a plumber, but he used to be an engineer, and things didn't work out because his wife divorced him, and he had to move. That gets boring. You wanted to tell the story of, so what happens to this plumber? Why am I here listening to this story about him? What did he do? It's the same thing with the book. You want to tell them the important things, and you want to have them be able to piece together the world from the clues you give. You don't want to just say, here's the world, here's the world, and now I'm going to tell you the story in it. Because the part about here's the world loses them. Just like the part where some boring guy is telling you a story and tells you every little detail of somebody's life before they get into why you care about the story. But I have digressed some from point of view. But as I said, don't use first-person point of view as an excuse to infodump. All right. I've gone over first person, third person limited, third person omniscient. Second person, it doesn't really matter unless you're writing like a choose your own adventure book or a manual, so I won't really go into that. I will go into tense briefly. A lot of writers have started writing present tense books in the last 20, 30 years. And it's very popular in urban fantasy, young adult. But I'm not sure if there's any advantage to it. I can't speak to everybody, but I know that for me, and I read a lot, that when I find a book that's written in present tense, unless it's done masterfully, all I get out of that is my mind translates it into past tense. I don't start thinking in present tense. I don't think, oh, this is cool that's in present tense. I just translated the past tense. There have been very, very few books where the present tense means anything or has any real effect. I can only think of one off the top of my head. Walter John Williams' book Hardwired is written in present tense, and it also is written in a choppy stream of consciousness style that goes well with the present tense. So, if you think you are up to it, if you can write a book that's in the right style that present tense will make a difference, then go for it. But if it's a book where you could write it in past tense and it wouldn't make any difference at all to the story you're telling, then why bother? It's just a gimmick unless you can use it as something that enhances the story. And most stories you can't. It has to be a special kind of story where it means anything. Some people will disagree. That's up to them. Go for it. I'm telling you my point of view. So past tense is usually the easiest thing to do. I had a story, a book, my book Glory Boy did very well. And originally when I wrote it, I was going to write the scenes. It had a lot of flashbacks. And I was going to write the scenes that took place in the present for the main character in present tense. And the flashback scenes in past tense. And I had it written that way right up until the time when I started trying to put it together as a book. After I published the Birthright trilogy and wanted to come out with Glory Boy as the prequel. I had 6 books under my belt, and I was looking at it, I'm like, this accomplishes nothing. All this is doing is making things more complicated. So I didn't do it. Like I said, if you want to try it, feel free. But I would take a hard look at your story and say, is this going to change anything? Is this going to make the story have a kind of an atmosphere where the present tense will make people feel in the moment? If it's not, if it's just a gimmick, then don't do it. All right. So I think I've gone over enough on POV. If you want to get in touch with me, dutyhonorplanet487@gmail.com, or you can look me up on Facebook, facebook.com/dutyhonorplanet. I will talk to you all later. Have a good one.